Did you know there was a drought in Switzerland? Yeah, there was not nearly as much snowfall as they usually get in Switzerland, and that led to a summer where they didn't have enough water for the cows who basically graze around in the tops of the mountains in Switzerland. As a result, they had to use trucks and helicopters to bring water to the cattle, because it turns out that Switzerland is very agricultural. You thought it was just about money.
What?
They don't have that problem in North Carolina. In North Carolina, they have more than enough water at this point. Much more than enough. There's the hurricane, tropical storm, tropical depression still going on, still pushing lots and lots of ocean up the rivers in the wrong direction and taking the water and dumping it onto the ground, filling up the rivers from the opposite direction. It's a problem. It's a different problem. The problem isn't the water in either case. The problem is the balance. The talk today is called Make Way for What's New. And in order to have water come in, it's really nice if it has a place to go. Water coming into Switzerland would be a good thing at this point, as far as we're concerned. More water going into North and South Carolina at this point would not be so preferable. Again, nothing wrong with the water. Why am I talking about the weather? Well, because if I just stood up here and talked about spiritual principles, we'd all kind of glaze over a little bit. So we tell the stories to put them into a framework that we can understand. There's, in 1 Corinthians, it says, when I was a child, I used to speak and think and act as a child. And now that I'm a man, I have put away the childish things. And that seems like that's growing up in maturity. And perhaps it is. But that's the same story. In order to engage with things as an adult, we need to make room for that. We can't hold on to the childish ways. We can't still do all of the things that we used to do and be doing something new. We have to make way for what's new. Is there room in your bank account for more money?
Yes.
Yes, there is. Have you called your banker to check? No, because that's not the way it works. There's plenty of room because it's arithmetic and that's definitely possible. However, if somebody's got a stack of $100 bills and a suitcase, there's only so much room in the suitcase for the $100 bills. And in order to carry more $100 bills, they're going to need to make some room. Now, we don't generally have to make choices like that. As I leave my house, am I going to bring my valise of $100 bills? Or am I going to bring a bunch of water? Well, on the one hand, the $100 bills will probably come in very handy. But if it turns out that what I really need is the water, much better than the $100 bills. So the important thing to remember is, wherever we are and wherever we're headed, to be aware of what it is that's going to be called for in that situation and to have room for it, to allow room for it. There's so many cases where somebody is talking to us and they were doing a prayer session, and what they want to do is have a new relationship. They want to have that perfect somebody come into their life, but they've always had the same sort of trouble with relationships. What they really want to do is have somebody who's not going to be a jerk, or leave them after some period of time, or get into that same pattern of fighting that they've had with all their relationships as soon as they hit the 7-month period, or 2 years, or whatever it is. You know these people, don't you? The person who that new person is going to be having a relationship with is somebody who always gets into a fight at month 7, who always has a problem. You can't be the same person you've been in all those previous relationships and expect the new one to be any different. We have to make way for what's new. We have to open up some space so that we can be different, so that we can engage in the relationship differently. Because in an infinitely abundant universe, with the law of attraction working the way the law of attraction works, the relationship that I'm going to get is the one that I'm attracting. And unless I put away the childish things, unless I make room for something new, change whatever it is about me, I'm going to be attracting the same thing over and over again. My wife and I have been married for 31 years. And our marriage, our relationship has gone through several metamorphoses. I don't even know if that's the plural for the word, but you know what I mean. Transformational. I am not the same person I was then. She is not the same person she was then. And there's some tumult in going through that transformation and changing on the way through. And it's good that neither of us is who we were in the beginning and acting the same way and clinging on to the same things, because them were some childish things. And it's wonderful to be able to have that synchronization, or at least that balance, kind of more like leapfrogging past each other. That happens in so many areas of our lives. We've been remodeling the house, and the best thing about fixing up the basement is all the stuff we got rid of. Now, we had everything in there for some reason. There was not a situation where we said, oh, I'm never going to need this. It's completely useless, and I have no idea that I would ever want to have it. Let's put it in the basement. Everything that was down there because at some point we thought it was a good idea to have it there. And we got to rethink a lot of that. Is this really serving us? If I need to have something that does this, do I want to have this one, or am I going to be just as happy to go out and get another one? We have a lot of vinyl records. We met at working at a radio station, and there's some classic stuff that's on the vinyl. And we had 2 shelves full of records in our living room. And that had been a bone of contention for a long time, because I said, let's get rid of the vinyl. And she said, that's important stuff. So as we were rearranging the house, we said, let's go through it. And now we have 1 shelf with the actual important records on it that you look at and say, that's a cool record to have. And we got rid of a lot of junk, because it's like, this was bad when it came out. And we got it for free from the radio station. And it's still bad. Clear it out and let it go. And it changes the dynamic, because now there's a different space, there's a different feel, there's a different energy, and we have room for other things. Disregarding the fact we hadn't had a turntable at work plugged in years. It was down in the basement because, of course, we might need it someday, but you know what? No. We have a bunch of CDs, too. Not ready to let go of those, but every time I get a CD, what am I going to do? I don't actually have a CD player. And it's wonderful to be able to take that fresh look at our lives and say, am I doing this because this is what serves me? Or am I doing this because this is what I've always done? Or am I limiting how good this can be and how transformative it can become by thinking of it in the old terms? What does my drought look like? What does my flood look like? What does my tomorrow look like? We are creative beings. This is an infinitely creative universe. Started out with nothing but that infinite intelligence, and it's now shared in billions of different ways, just as people on the planet, and billions of galaxies with billions of stars in each of those galaxies. There's a lot of variety in this universe. And it all came from that one singularity. Whether it was darkness and void and God said, let there be, or the Big Bang, or whatever you think of it. There's a creative process that's continuing to go on. I'm so delighted that Jane is here today, because Jane is an artist, and she'll start with a blank canvas and turn it into art. Now, there's not a recipe. You go out and you do this and it becomes art. It's a creative, it's a spontaneous thing. I am not going to be an artist because I get lots of paints and canvases. My dad was a wonderful fine artist, and when he passed away, I got the opportunity to get lots of blank canvases and paintbrushes and acrylics, and I looked for the generation that was going to be able to put them to use, because I'd had access to that stuff for a long time, and it's not what I do. My creativity works in a different way. I'm a writer rather than a painter or an artist in that dimension. And I'm not going to write any better because I have a better pen. What makes me write better is an inspiration to write something and to share it. When I have something that needs to be written, I find a place to write it down, whether that's on a computer or on my phone or on a scrap of paper. I try to avoid scraps of paper because my history has told me that I'll never be able to find it again. And it's also told me that if I'm not serious enough about finding a good piece of paper to write it down on, then I'm really not serious about the creative process. Often I'll take notes on whatever's available so something doesn't get away. But then when I flesh it out, it's in a place where I can honor it. And by the way, that's just me. I am convinced that instead of notepads, my wife should just get a stack of torn up envelopes. Because that's what she writes on. And it works for her. It would make me crazy. It's the balance point. It's what works in our lives, in our particular pattern. And I love watching the creative process unfold in lots of different people. Working on this Higher Vibe Positive Music Festival has been a wonderful opportunity because my wife Dina is producing the event and New Thought Philadelphia is presenting the event, and there's a new dynamic. There's an opportunity to work together on something that she's really good at because she's been running the Philadelphia Songwriters Project for 10 or 15 years. And we've been doing this and having them come together and taking, in a lot of ways, the New Thought Philadelphia approach of sharing and connecting and deepening in spirit, which is the way that we approach it, and her very organized way of connecting with the creative people who are participating in this, has created a whole field that's really wonderful of how this is coming together. So the promotion is starting, and then the sponsors coming on board was astounding. Just wonderful. As we mentioned this to some organizations, they said, "Yeah, let's do this. Let's jump on board and get involved." I think I told you guys, New Thought Channel, which is the one that carries our videos and lots of others every week. I called them up and I said, "We're doing this festival." They said, "Count us in." So they're sponsoring. And what we wanted to be able to do was record the musicians so that we can get them onto New Thought Channel, because that lets everybody up level. And I was talking to my daughter, who happens to be the executive producer of a TV show on PBS. It's Articulate with Jim Cotter. And I said, "I'm professionally jealous. I'm officially professionally jealous, because the cinematography on your show is drop dead gorgeous, and I wish that we could have something that good for the festival." So Articulate with Jim Cotter is now on board as a sponsor, and they're going to be shooting this, and we're talking to the producer and cameraman who's going to be coming down to shoot the festival, working out the details for the how the sound is going to plug together and the recordings are going to work and all of that. So I get to put on my complete geek technical hat for all of that. And he's going to do a 3-camera shoot. He's describing exactly what it's going to be doing. So this is going to be the real deal. And then I said, "Are you going to bring a drone?" And he said, "Well, I haven't thought about that." I said, it's an outdoor festival," he says. Because I know from having talked to my daughter that every time they get into a production meeting, they talk about, how can we use a drone in this? Because they've got a couple of them, and they're gorgeous. I mean, it's beautiful. But they also don't want to be gratuitous, because having the camera fly around just because it can doesn't make any sense.
Sure does.
Spoken like somebody who hasn't gotten a drone. Yeah. I was talking to to another friend of mine. He says when somebody first gets a drone, all of their videos are drone shots. That's all you see for like 3 months, and then they steady back down into a pattern. Again, it's finding your balance point. So they're going to bring the drone and shoot with the drone for an hour. And he actually gave me the best answer I could imagine. He says, I'd have to bring in another production assistant if we're going to use a drone as well. And I said, good answer, because the thought of you running 3 cameras plus flying a drone simultaneously over my festival, that's not a balance point. So we say, we open ourselves. There's a creative spark. There's an idea. There's an inspiration and invitation. What do I want to see happening? I want to see this be a top shelf video production. Stand in there, open myself to it, let the word be known, and let the universe answer in the form of my daughter's boss. Awesome. Wonderful. And the gifts keep on being shared and revealed. And it happens in lots of little ways, and it happens in big ways. So the question, obviously, for you is going to be, first of all, what do you want to have in your life? What big thing or what little thing do you want to have in your life? What is it that seems like it's been missing or that you've been yearning for? Because that's the first part. Because sometimes we know exactly what it is that we want. And sometimes we know exactly how it is that we want to feel, and we think we know what we have to do in order to feel that way. And then instead of wanting to feel that way, we want the thing. And that's like putting something in my basement because I know that's going to make me happy later. So what's the feeling? What's the experience that you want to be having? Of freedom, of prosperity, of health and vitality, of physical comfort, of relationships, of love, of connectedness. And that can be, with family, with a significant other. It can be with your colleagues in your workplace. There have been times when my workplace has been very contentious and very unpleasant. And in a situation where I've got a contentious, unpleasant workplace, that really becomes the focus. Now, I'm going there to do a job and to earn a paycheck, but that's a lot of time that I'm spending in an experience that's not any fun. And having that transform just by shifting the team around sometimes. If there's somebody who's been doing a job that they don't like doing and they get assigned to do a job that they do like doing, that can turn all of the energy in the workplace completely around. Jokingly say that in some cases we can get somebody hired away to another company and it improves both companies. Because the one that they're going to is looking for somebody who can do exactly that, and the one that they're leaving is like, oh my God, it's time for that person to no longer be here. Yeah. You go over to the Firestone, get new tires, they balance them. Because they're round, and they're pretty balanced. But it turns out when they're spinning around 70 miles an hour, or faster, or sometimes even slower, if they're not balanced, they're going to shake, and they're going to wobble. And it's not that there's something wrong with the wheel or the tire. And it's not that there's something magical about the weight that they use to balance it. It's about putting those pieces together so that it can all work the way that we want it to work, the experience that we want to be having. I never go over to the Firestone and say, I really want to have some weights put in my tire. What I do is I want to have my tire brought into balance. So what's going to bring you back into balance? What's going to bring you into that experience of joy and harmony, or prosperity, or creativity? When we open ourselves up to what is that next thing for me, the universe will respond. We'll get that guidance. And by the way, ask a couple of times, because it's possible that the first answer is your ego, imitating the voice of the infinite, telling you what it thinks it wants. If you keep getting the same response, when you keep getting that awareness, you get that clarity. This is what's next for me. That's the wonderful. And you open yourself up to what's new. And not just what do I want to have, what do I get to let go of? The Jewish tradition is celebrating Yom Kippur. It's about closing the book on last year. It's about addressing all of those things that didn't work, where I did stuff that was not helpful to other people or to myself, to atone for it in whatever way I can do that so that I can move on into the new year with an open slate. It's the exhale before the inhale. It's not like one of them is better than the other. You need to have both. But if you're Been breathing in for an entire year, it's time to breathe out a little bit so you can have another breath. About coming into that balance point. And there might be multiples. Might be health and relationship. Might be finances and creativity. Whatever it is for you is what it is for you. And whatever it is that you're yearning for in your life, there's not an external limitation on it. There is no force in the universe that's saying, nope, can't have it. Can't be done. Maybe it's not possible for it to work the way you're thinking of it working. When we're talking about the feeling, the tone, and the texture, what do I want to be experiencing? What do I want to be feeling? How do I want to be in my relationships or my work? It's always possible. And the spiritual work that we do, in a lot of cases, it's about, wow, I didn't realize that I would love doing this as much as I love it. I didn't realize that this could be as fabulous as it is. That's what putting away the childish things is. It's the assumption, that deep down insistence that we know what's going to be best for us. And be able to mature into, I'm accepting the gifts that are coming my way, and stating my intention and setting my course and allowing the good to come. That's the creative process. And you are a star in that creative process, directing and acting and performing in your own program. So invite something wonderful to have, to share, to be, because you deserve it. So it is.
So it is.